Trying to understand English grammar is like trying to solve a mystery. English grammar is irregular, contradictory, and confusing. Fortunately, though, you don't have to walk these dark streets of grammatical confusion by yourself. I'm English teacher Paul Duke, and on this show I'll be your grammar detective. Each week, we'll investigate communication crimes and suspicious sentences, context clues and example evidence. Together, we'll solve these English mysteries once and for all. Welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. Welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live Grammar Gumshoes. It is Friday, April 19th, 2024. I'm your humble host and grammar detective, Paul Duke, and I'm thrilled to be with you once again. On this show, we investigate and solve your English grammar mysteries, and tonight we have a fascinating and fun English mystery to solve. Actually, let me get that out of the way. Actually, tonight is one of my favorite topics that we'll get to shortly. In the meantime, I want to say hello to everyone and find out how you're doing. So please say hello in the chat box and tell me what country you're watching from. I think we have people from all over the place here. Who have I missed so far? From Turkey, great. Indonesia, wonderful. See how many different places are watching. Pakistan, welcome. Great. Some of you know each other, that's lovely. We have Isabel with us. We have Swan with us. We have Levi Vieira from Brazil. We have also, I think I missed some people. We have our friends from Costa Rica, from Brazil. We have Colombia. We have Jonas from Morocco. Wow, it's great. Everyone's all over the world watching this show. For me, this is fantastic. This is why I do it. I do this show every week because I love to help people understand English grammar better. And by people, I mean you guys all over the map. So it's great to have you with us. It's great to be here. It's springtime where I live, and I've got some exciting news coming up. Got a season coming up of some very fascinating guests. So stay tuned. I'll be announcing very soon some special episodes of Hard-Boiled English Live with some really exciting guests. Now, in May, I'm going to have a special guest, really one of my favorite guests. I've been hoping to get on the show for a long time. However, that show will be at a very different time. Right now it's 5 p.m. in my country, in my city. But when we do that guest show, it's going to be in the morning for me, which will be in the evening for a lot of you guys. So please pay attention to the times because it'll change for the special guests. And the reason is quite simple. It's 5 p.m. in my country, so this time is convenient for me. But sometimes my guests live in countries where this time is very inconvenient. And I want to do my best to accommodate them. Sorry guys, my microphone wire is behaving strangely. Did I miss anybody? Okay, so a lot of people here. I have a question to ask you guys. So I'm going to ask this question just to get started. I want to know, what did you learn about English this past week? I know you're all working hard, studying your English. Is there something specific or particular that you learned this week? that you're very excited about? Please tell me in the chat. I'm very curious to know when you learn something interesting. I want you to share that with me. So just drop a little note in there and tell me if you've seen something interesting. In the meantime, I'll just make a couple of reminders here. If you haven't already, guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The easiest way is to scan your QR code with your phone right on the screen here. You can do it right on the screen. It'll take you to the YouTube channel. Press subscribe. And the reason is quite simple. Although the show is on Facebook and LinkedIn, all these other places, the best place to watch is YouTube because the picture quality is best, the sound quality is best, and you can see the full recording of the show after in case you miss it. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the best place for everything. Also, if you haven't already, please join my private members club. There are a variety of membership packages, including a free one. And in the future, I'm going to be moving all of my products, resources, materials. We're going to have private Zoom conversation clubs in there. Everything's going to be in one place. It's a website, it's a course platform, it's a store, it's everything in one place. So please join my members club and I'll see you there. And as always, if you're feeling generous and you'd like to financially support the show, you can through Patreon. It's appreciated because this show does cost me a lot of money to bring to you for free every week. It's not free for me, it's costly. So even a contribution of $1 helps me pay for the production costs. But again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the important thing. What else do I want to share with you? Well, let's see. Oh, I think I've missed someone. This is Hadiza from Nigeria. Welcome. Oh, 1:06 a.m. Well, thank you for staying up late and watching the show. It's great to have you with us. Yes, please, Isabel, great point. If you're watching the show, it's very simple. Just please press like, press the like button. Share it with your friends. That really helps more people see the show. Really important. We also have with us Mr. Jack, Teacher Jack from the A to Z English podcast. Great podcast covering English topics. Lots to learn with two great teachers. So please check out the A to Z podcast. Jack, please feel free to put the link in the chat box where they can find you. Also on my YouTube channel, you can see a past episode on which Jack joined me as a special guest, and we got to know Jack a little bit. Who else is with us? We have GRS Biosciences with us from India. Thank you for joining us. That's an interesting name. GRS. What does the GRS stand for? GRS. Very interesting. Yeah, so I want to know what you guys have been learning this week. Has anyone been learning something interesting this week? Have you learned something that surprised you? Oh my gosh, look at the spelling of that. Let me just fix that. The screen is pretty far away, so sometimes I don't notice the error right away. Well, guys, we'll get to our English mystery of the week in a few moments, but I really want to know what you guys are learning. And by the way, also, as the show progresses, if you have any grammar questions that you'd like me to address, please put them in the comment. I may not be able to answer them tonight, but I'll answer them on a future episode. A few weeks back, somebody asked a great question, and then we never heard from that friend again. So I don't want to answer it on the show until that person returns and can confirm that they see it. Anybody? Anybody have any interesting learning experience this week? Sure. Well, you can always watch it on the YouTube channel, right? That's the great thing about YouTube. I post the recording usually about an hour or 2 hours after the live stream is finished. I'll post the recorded version, and you can watch it and see the whole thing. Okay, I've been learning about relative clauses and take some note about prepositions as well. Good. Take some notes about prepositions. Good. Prepositions are tricky, but you've got to learn them. They're important in English. Relative clauses, very important. And we've been talking about relative clauses recently, so you might want to check out some of the recent episodes. Anybody else? Anybody else want to say hello? Did I miss anyone? Ah, great. Jack, thank you. In an interview, a student also mentioned how relative clauses really helped him move to the next level. Yeah, they're really powerful. You know, we learn about adjectives that can describe a noun. For example, the noun pen, we can say the red pen. But adjective clauses are powerful because they can describe what something does, because a clause contains a verb. So, for example, we can describe this toy moose. This is an animal that lives in Canada, where I live. We can describe this toy moose. We could say this is a toy moose. But we can also describe this with a relative clause and describe what it does. Right? This moose falls down or takes a nap. So we could say, Paul has a moose that falls down. That's the action. So you can describe what something does in terms of action with a relative clause. They're very powerful, and you're right. The student is right. They take it to the next level. Absolutely. I am from UAE. I've watched your video of transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. I really like your way of teaching. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for watching those videos, and I hope they were useful. Relative clause comes at the end of the sentence. Sometimes, not always. Anybody else learn something interesting this week? I did. I learned something interesting every week. As a teacher, my duty to my students is to have good information for my students, including new information, because language always changes, right? Languages are always evolving. So there are always new things to teach, which means there are always new things to learn. So I try to learn something a little bit every day. Perfect cognates this week, Paul. Great. Excellent. It's so important to keep learning, guys. I mean, I'm an old man, right? I could just sit on a chair and watch TV all day. But I want to keep learning because the world is changing, language is changing, and I want to understand things. So I constantly learn. And you should too. Learning should be interesting and fun and fascinating. Anyone else before we move on? As you can see, I've got some words getting ready to share themselves with us. Tonight's topic is a very fun topic. I hope you enjoy it. It's also a really common grammar mystery. Kindly explain how to use gerunds. Gerunds or grounds? What's grounds? Gerunds as the object of the preposition. GRS Biosciences, you seem new to this show. I don't think I've seen you before. I highly recommend going to the YouTube channel, and you'll see a bunch of pink posters of all the past episodes. There are lots of episodes where we talked about gerunds and lots of episodes where we talked about prepositions. So go and check that out. Or join my private members club. All you have to do is give us your email address, type in, register your email address, And if you send me a message, I'll send you those links to those topics. What I'd like to do, what I'd prefer to do, is every week discuss a new grammar topic, a new grammar mystery, rather than repeating things we've talked about before. Although I know it's new for you if you're joining the show new, and I want to help you understand. So we'll always end up coming back to prepositions and gerunds, but there's definitely a few episodes with really good explanations about those. And you can search. The titles are all keyworded based on those topics. Are there perfect cognates for each country? Great question. That's a good question, and I think it deserves its own show. So let me record that question, and we'll come back to it maybe next week. It's my first time joining the show, and I'm happy about that. I get confused when using two prepositions as come on in. Yeah, that can be very confusing. Yep. Yep. And often phrasal verbs, a verb plus a preposition combination, create this problem. It's also important to remember that prepositions, although they often work with a verb, their function is to connect a noun. They come before a noun, right? And they show the relationship of the noun to everything else. Collocations, or groups of words, are important because they help us remember, but the preposition is not really that importantly related to the verb. It's really related to the noun. But again, watch the preposition episodes. All right, guys, I think it's time to solve a mystery, right? So I'm going to get myself ready. I'll get out of my raincoat because it's not raining in here. I'm actually not even outside. It's kind of stupid to be wearing a raincoat, but it's my costume and I like it. Oh, did I miss someone? They create problems when you're learning them. Once you learn them, they actually solve problems. The great thing about phrasal verbs, for example, turn on the lights, you never have to choose the preposition. If you can remember the phrasal verb and the idea that you want, like turn on the lights, give it power, you never have to choose a preposition. It's got one built in. There's only one preposition that you can use there. So it kind of solves the problem. When you're making other sentences and connecting nouns, you have to decide on several choices of preposition, and each one has a different meaning. Oh, Anna Maria's joined us. Welcome, welcome. We're just about to start our English Mystery of the Week, so thank you. And if you guys are ready, let's get ready for our English Mystery of the Week. Tonight's a fun one. Well, at least I hope so. Okay, here we go, guys. Let's look at our English Mystery of the Week. All right, welcome back, guys. So tonight's English mystery is the strange case of the misplaced modifier. Now, what the hell does that mean? First of all, what does misplaced mean? Well, it means placed in the wrong place, wrong position. And what's a modifier? That's a bigger question. We've talked a lot about modifiers. Modifiers change the meaning of another word or another phrase. They can change the meaning of a verb. That's an adverb. An adverb is a type of modifier. I talked earlier about adjectives. Red pen. Red is an adjective. Red tells us information about the pen. It modifies the meaning of the word pen. It changes it a little bit. It gives us more information. But there are all sorts of modifiers. There can be preposition phrase modifiers. For example, red pen. Where is it? In the cup. In the cup is a prepositional phrase, but it's telling us where the pen is. So it's kind of adverbial. It modifies the pen and our understanding of the word pen. It gives it a place. The challenge with modifiers just like the challenge with adverbs and adjectives of all kinds, is where to put them. Okay? Position is crucial. And it is very common for language learners, and by the way, some native speakers too. It's very common to put the modifier in the wrong place. And when you do that, it changes the meaning and confuses the meaning. It creates what I call English weirdness, in fact. And sometimes the meaning changes in a way that's not too bad. We can still understand your idea. Sometimes it changes the meaning so much that it creates something very funny and strange. And I've got some fun examples to show you tonight, okay? I'm going to put on the screen a few examples, and we'll look at them. And then I'm going to go to the board and show you some examples and how the meaning would change if we replaced the modifier. So let's look at our first one. And I hope you'll find these funny. Now here's the thing, guys. These are real life examples taken from student writing, student expressions, tests I've seen, all kinds of different examples. I've even taken some examples from newspapers and magazines. So native speakers also commit this communication crime. Everyone's guilty. It's not a big deal, okay? You will probably misplace a modifier sometime in your learning process. It's okay. It's part of the learning. It's one of the most complicated decisions to make in English is where to put modifiers. Okay, it takes a long time to learn how to do that. I think the best way to learn is to read, because then you can see the sentence and you can see things in their position very slowly and take your time. In speech, we don't have a lot of time to analyze the sentence. So read a lot and it'll help you understand modifier position. Okay? Very important. So don't be discouraged when you make errors like the ones I'm going to show you. Let's look at the first one. In 1979, he bought control of the company's stock along with his mother. So in this sentence, along with his mother is a modifier, but it's in the wrong spot. This sentence means he bought control of the company's stock, the financial ownership. But it also says he also bought control of his mother. This modifier is in the wrong place. What this sentence should express is that he and his mother bought control of the company's stock. So by putting this at the end of the sentence, it modifies company's stock. It doesn't modify he bought, right? The idea of this is that he and his mother bought control of the company stock. They are a double subject. But instead, the writer has added this at the end. But in that position, it's modifying stock, right? And it creates a kind of funny sentence. He bought control of the company stock along with his mother. He bought control of his mother? That's weird. I mean, it's possible, but it's weird. Okay, let's look at the next one. Messi, the soccer player, soaked an ankle he injured in an ice bucket. Messi soaked an ankle he injured in an ice bucket. Can you see the problem? In an ice bucket is a prepositional phrase. And in this sentence, it's modifying the verb injured. It says he injured it in an ice bucket. That's not the meaning. We should be meaning that Messi hurt his ankle, and after the game, he's a soccer player, after the game he soaked his ankle in an ice bucket. But that's not what this sentence says. This sentence says he hurt it, he injured his ankle in the ice bucket, like he's walking along and stepped into an ice bucket and hurt his ankle. That's crazy. I mean, it's possible, but I think what we're trying to say is that in the game, he injured his ankle, And after the game, he soaked his ankle in an ice bucket. That's usually what football players do. They hurt themselves, they put their injury in ice. But this is in the wrong position. It's again at the end of the sentence, right? In an ice bucket is in the wrong position. Now it's modifying injured. It should be modifying soaked. This is a great example, and this is probably the most common problem. Students will put a modifier at the end of the sentence, and in this case, the modifier is really an adverb. It's telling us about an action. The problem is this sentence has two actions, soaked and injured. So what happened in the ice bucket? Did he soak in an ice bucket? Or did he injure in an ice bucket? If you put the modifier or the adverb at the end of the sentence and you have two verbs, we don't know which verb it belongs to. And the logical interpretation is the closest verb. And here it's the closest verb is injured. So it sounds like he injured it in an ice bucket. No. I want to say Messi soaked his ankle in an ice bucket. Which ankle? The ankle he injured, right? So there's kind of two ideas here. He injured his ankle. He soaked it in an ice bucket. The problem is these ideas are split apart. Big problem. And it creates a kind of a funny meaning, all right? Let's look at another one. The patient was sent to a psychiatrist with a severe emotional problem. Okay? Now, in real life, this maybe is possible. The patient was sent to a psychiatrist with a severe emotional problem. So here, the modifier is with a severe emotional problem. Problem is, it's supposed to modify one of the people. Who do you think it should be modifying? The patient with a severe emotional problem or the psychiatrist? I mean, it's possible the psychiatrist has a severe emotional problem. Many people do. But usually a patient with a severe emotional problem is sent to a psychiatrist with no emotional problem, hopefully, right? They're stable, they're strong, they're confident, and they can help a patient. But this sentence tells us that the psychiatrist is the one with the severe emotional problem. If I have a problem and I go to a psychiatrist, I don't want my psychiatrist to have problems. I want my psychiatrist to be really strong, stable, and helpful to me if I have emotional problems. So in this case, the modifier severe emotional problems doesn't belong to a verb, it belongs to one of the people or subjects. And the problem is we have a subject and an object. And if you put it at the end of the sentence, we don't know which one it belongs to. It's too far away from patient. So now it modifies psychiatrist. So you can start to see a pattern, especially with modifiers at the end of the sentence. Naturally, our interpretation is that it modifies the closest word, whether it's a verb, like this example, or whether it's the person, like this, right? So by putting in the wrong position, it creates a funny and strange meaning. Just want to quickly say hello to Najd, hello, or Jody. I'm not sure which one you are, but welcome. And let's go back to our examples. Oops, sorry guys. Okay, let's look at a few more. Got a few more funny ones, and then we'll do some, we'll play around with this. Okay. The waiter served a dinner roll to the woman that was well buttered. I mean, when you read that, what picture do you have in your mind? The waiter at a restaurant served a dinner roll. A dinner roll is like a bread bun, right? Like a little round bread bun. The waiter served a dinner roll to the woman that was well buttered. So here the modifier is, it's a relative clause. That was well buttered. Now with relative clauses, they modify the noun, right? They are like adjective clauses, so they're designed to modify the noun. The thing is, they modify the closest noun. In this case, the word woman is the closest noun. So this sentence tells us that the woman was well buttered. Now that's possible, but ladies out there in the audience, you tell me, do you normally put a lot of butter on your skin? I don't know, that sounds weird to me. I don't put butter on my skin. I eat butter, right? So this creates a funny meaning. It creates a picture of a woman at a restaurant and she's covered in butter, right? She's putting butter all over herself. And the waiter gave her a bread roll, a dinner roll. And maybe what does she do? She rubs the butter on the roll and eats it? It's strange. More logically, the dinner roll. Dinner roll is another noun. I think the dinner roll should have butter on it, right? It's bread. Usually, at a restaurant, people get a butter roll before their dinner, right? Maybe they have a drink. The waiter brings them bread of some kind and some butter, and they're hungry, so they have something to eat before the main food arrives. You know, you can cut the roll and put butter on it, and it's more delicious. Usually, the woman, or the man for that matter, are not wearing butter. This sentence says the woman's buttered. So this relative clause is in the wrong position. It should be modifying waiter, right? This should really say, sorry, it should be modifying the dinner roll. The waiter served a dinner roll that was well buttered to the woman, right? So the modifier has to be next to the thing it modifies. If you put it at the end of the sentence or at the beginning, it can create this ambiguity, this strange meaning. Okay, let's look at the next one. The mother handed out sandwiches to all the kids in Ziploc plastic bags. Do you guys know what a Ziploc plastic bag is? A Ziploc plastic bag looks like this. It's a plastic bag with a zipper to close it. And you can put food in there. I put old batteries and lights in there, right, for the recycling container. That's a Ziploc bag. Look at this sentence closely and you'll see the problem. The mother handed out sandwiches to all the kids in Ziploc plastic bags. In Ziploc plastic bags is our prepositional phrase, and it's a modifier. It's telling us more information about something. What do you think it's telling us information about? In other words, what do you think went into the Ziploc bag? The kids or the sandwiches? Right? So here, sandwiches is an object, and kids is another object, the indirect object. So we have two nouns, and we have this modifier that's going to modify the next closest noun, which is kids. This is a pretty small bag. Even a baby doesn't fit in here very easily. Never mind a child, okay? So this is telling us that the mother handed out sandwiches to all the kids that were in the Ziploc bags. That's crazy. Kids can't fit into Ziploc bags. And even if they could fit, why would they be in a Ziploc bag? It's dangerous. Not very comfortable. So this modifier, in Ziploc plastic bags, should be right beside the word sandwiches. The mother handed out sandwiches in Ziploc bags to all the kids. So you can see how position is so important. A couple more. The bank robber was about 185 centimeters with long curly hair, weighing about 90 kilograms. The bank robber was about 185 centimeters with long curly hair, weighing about 90 kilograms. Well, the modifier here is weighing about 90 kilograms. Now, I think I'm about 90 kilograms, and I am 185 centimeters. I'm pretty tall, and I'm pretty heavy. 90 kilograms is a lot of weight. When I stand on the scale every day, I know it's a lot of weight. In this sentence, the modifier weighing about 90 kilograms is modifying the wrong noun. It's modifying hair. Now, I don't have any hair, so my hair is weightless, but the bank robber had hair. Long curly hair. I don't think his hair weighed 90 kilograms. That's a lot of weight. That's my body weight, right? So the weight, 90 kilograms, is probably referring to the bank robber's body, not his hair, his total body. But it's in the wrong position. It's modifying the closest noun, which is hair. Okay? So this should move. It should say something like, the bank robber was about 185 centimeters, weighing about 90 kilograms, and with long curly hair, period. Right? So you can see the problem, especially when the modifier is at the end of the sentence. Huge problem. Now, if you have a very short sentence with one verb or one noun, and you put it at the end of the sentence, it's clear. The problem is, as you're learning English and developing your skill, your sentences get longer. You might have two verbs, right? Like the messy example, right? Messy soaked an ankle, he injured. So we have soaked and we have injured, two verbs. And we have a modifier that doesn't know which verb it belongs to. So as you start developing your skill and making longer sentences, this becomes a real problem. You have to be very careful with putting the modifier at the end automatically. Students tend to put at the end automatically, and often because they're taught to. That's okay with a simple sentence with one verb and one noun, but once you have more than one noun and more than one verb, this can be very dangerous. So, if you're not sure where to put it close to the thing it's modifying, right? Here, for example, injured in an ice bucket belongs to ankle, right? Ankle. It doesn't belong to, in an ice bucket belongs to ankle. It doesn't belong, my bad. In an ice bucket belongs to soaked, not injured, right? He soaked it in an ice bucket. Okay, now I'm going to go to the board and put a couple of examples up for you, and we'll see if we can rearrange them. Right, Jack? You can see how funny these examples are. The kids are in the Ziploc bags. Oh, I want to say hello to Chinu Rao. Welcome. Yep. Be kind to the environment and put your kids in paper bags. Great. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go to the board and I'll show you a couple of examples. These ones are kind of strange and funny too, so I hope you'll enjoy them. Let me bring down the first one. The town. Can you see that pretty clearly? The town doesn't have any outdoor activities, especially the kids. The town doesn't have any outdoor activities, especially the kids. So in this case, especially the kids is our modifier. The problem is, this modifier is modifying the word activities. Are kids activities? No, they're not an example of activities. They're not modifying, they can't modify activities. There's another word here that it should modify, which is town. Kids are part of the town, right? The town is full of different people, but there is a particular group called the kids, the children. So this should be over here. It should be something like this. The town, especially the kids, doesn't have any outdoor activities. Now, if we did this, we've now separated the subject and the verb, and that can be a problem. So if you separate the subject and the verb, we need a couple of commas here. the town, especially the kids of the town, and we could probably add that, especially the kids, or the kids, let's say the kids there in the town. So the kids are part of the town. The town, especially the kids there, doesn't have any outdoor activities, right? The town doesn't have any outdoor activities. And the kids are not an example of activities. So that was in the wrong spot. This is also common, right? Thinking, sometimes when you're writing something or saying it, you remember the modifier at the end. That doesn't mean it's the correct spot for it. You can't just glue it onto the end and it'll make sense. Sometimes it's going to create confusion, a lot of confusion. So we have to be careful of that. Okay, I'm just going to bring down another example. And just clean that up a little bit. Let's take a look here. Thanks to the post office for the kind service they give little old ladies in mailing packages. Take a look at this one, guys. Thanks to the post office for the kind service they give little old ladies, let me just get another magnet, little old ladies in mailing packages. What do you think of that one? Thanks to the post office for the kind service they give little old ladies in mailing packages. This one, here's the modifier in mailing packages, right? It's telling us where something is. The problem is it's telling us where little old ladies are. The little old ladies are in mailing packages? That's crazy. Mailing packages. Well, little old ladies are not in mailing packages. So I think this should probably look like this. Something like this, maybe? Thanks to the post office for the kind service they give in mailing packages. And we could add a preposition to little old ladies, right? They mail the packages to little old ladies from the post office. We could also probably move it over, thanks to the post office for the kind service in mailing packages they give to little old ladies. That's possible too. Can you see that? Either one works because it's not the little old ladies that are in the mailing packages. That creates a very strange meaning. Okay, let's look at another one. Let's look at some historical information here, for those of you who like history. This is a darkly strange one. Oops. Sources said, shortly after his death, Mao, that's Chairman Mao, who unified China. Sources said, shortly after his death, Mao had expressed a wish that his body be cremated. Cremated is the process of burning the deceased or dead person, right? Sources said shortly after his death, Mao had expressed a wish that his body be cremated. Can you see the problem? Look closely at that. And I apologize for the colored magnets. They're a little distracting compared to the clear magnets, but I ran out. Sources said, shortly after his death, Mao had expressed a wish that his body be cremated. So Mao said, I want my body to be cremated. We have a problem though. Shortly after his death, Mao had expressed. How does he express a wish? How does he tell people he wants his body cremated after his death? For me, that's not possible. When I die, I can't tell anybody anything, right? Unless I come back as a ghost, which I don't really want to do. So this sentence is telling us that sources said that shortly after his death, Mao had expressed a wish that he died, and then he told people he wants his body cremated. That's kind of weird. So here, the modifier is in the wrong place. And this is an example where we're in the completely wrong place. I think what we need to do here is actually, let me get my scissors. We have a big problem here. I think I have an extra magnet. I'm going to cut this. So I think we're going to have to move that completely. So we have a couple of verbs here, right? We have said, that's one action. Expressed, that's another action. So this is an example where the modifier is an adverbial and it's pointing to the wrong verb, right? This did not happen after his death. This did. So, oops, I think we need to do that as well. Sorry guys, just give me a moment. So, what happened shortly after his death? Well, I think Mao cannot speak after his death. So, this happened shortly after his death. So I think this should say something like, this. Shortly after Mao's death, sources said, right? So this should be a time adverbial telling us the time, which is shortly after his death. Sources said something. Sources probably like journalists or politicians. They said something after his death. So Mao dies, and then people tell us something. Maybe his family members, maybe his fellow politicians announced to the society that before his death, he had expressed a wish that his body be cremated. So we need another word here. He. Shortly after his death, sources said, right? So now, this time adverb is modifying said. It's telling us when the sources said this. It's like saying yesterday I ate pizza. Yesterday is a time adverb telling you when I ate, when I did the action. Shortly after his death, after Mao's death, sources said. What did he say? What did they say? They said all this. And this is basically a relative clause, right? Sources said that he had expressed a wish his body be cremated. And we have past perfect here, so that tells us that happened before that verb. Even though the verb said comes in the first position of the sentence, in reality, that action happened first. So that's how the sentence should look. Shortly after his death, sources said Mao had expressed a wish that his body be cremated. So after he died, the sources revealed this information. Mao didn't reveal this information. Sources said this. Now we have something that's possible in real life. So let's look at the last one, which I think is my favorite. This one's fun. Okay, here we go. This is an example of a misplaced modifier in a different wrong position, but I think you'll enjoy this one. As a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, I realized that Mongo had special diet. As a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, I realized that Mongo had special diet. Mongo is the name of the chimpanzee. Can you see the problem? This actually is the most common misplaced modifier. This is the most common position error. This is the problem. We have two ideas here, two sentences really. The main idea is that I realized that Mongo had, it should say, a special diet. Mongo had a special diet. I realized that. This is the most common misplaced modifier. As a chimpanzee who grew up in the jungle, I realized. When you put that modifier at the beginning of the sentence, before the main subject, guess what? It modifies that subject. This sentence says that I'm a chimpanzee who grew up in the jungle. Now, maybe my wife thinks I am, but I actually grew up in Toronto. It's not a jungle. As a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, When you put a modifier at the beginning of the sentence, it automatically modifies the subject because we haven't revealed the subject yet. So whatever you put here, it has to match that subject, right? In this case, it really makes no sense. As a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, I'm not a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle. I'm a boy who grew up in Canada, right? So let's go back to the main idea. I realized that Mongo had a special diet. Mongo is the chimpanzee's name. Don't you think this modifies Mongo? Mongo is a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle. So if that modifies Mongo, why is it over here? It's in the wrong place. If it's here, it's going to modify the nearest subject. But I'm a human. It should be modifying the word Mongo. So I think we need to change this sentence. And again, I have to cut it. And I think I'm out of magnets, so I'm going to borrow the little old lady's here. The magnet. It should say something like this. I realized that Mongo or let's do this. Let's try it. There's a couple ways to do this, but I think this is probably the clearest. It's not very straight. Sorry, guys. I can't really see, I guess, how straight this looks or not. Now we have a more clear sentence. I realized what? I realized that as a chimpanzee who grew up in the jungle, Mongo, not Paul, had a special diet. Now, I do have a special diet. I try to stay healthy. But my special diet is probably different than the chimpanzee called Mongo. Probably. Although I like bananas. So let's identify the parts here. We have I realized. That's the subject and the verb. We have a relative clause. That, as a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, Mongo had a special diet. So we have several ideas here, several clauses, right? Now, I think I told you that when we put a relative clause in between the subject and the main idea, we need commas. So I would put commas here, right? I realized that as a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, Mongo had a special diet. Mongo had a special diet. Mongo is the chimpanzee. So this is now modifying Mongo. It's not modifying Paul anymore. And I'm happy about that because although I have a special diet and although my special diet might be similar to Mongo's, I am definitely not a chimpanzee who grew up in the wild in the jungle. I'm just not. Right? So these are the corrected versions. And you can see from these examples that misplaced modifiers can really make a mess of meaning. It also tells us something important about grammar. And I've said this often on this show. Because people often ask me, hey teacher, do I need to learn grammar? I just want to learn how to speak. Well, I would say this. Everyone wants to learn how to speak the language they choose, in this case English. But if you speak without good grammar, you're just making noises, kind of like a chimpanzee, right? Even if you know some vocabulary, words, if you don't know how to arrange them, you're going to speak nonsense. And even if you can arrange them really well, okay, you're not speaking nonsense, but you might not be communicating the exact idea you want. You might end up with one of these strange sentences. Okay, let's go back and take a look at this. Remember our previous examples. Now these are pretty well written sentences, right? They're not a beginner. But one little problem, the misplaced modifier, changes the meaning and makes it seem ridiculous, right? And that's because grammar is important. The structure of a sentence, the grammatical structure, is the structure through which we communicate a meaning. Every structure communicates a different meaning. The wrong structure communicates a meaning, but it's the wrong meaning. And sometimes it's an absurd or ridiculous meaning. And you don't want that. Unless you're trying to be funny, then by all means. Or unless these happen to be true. Right? It is possible to go to a psychiatrist who has a severe emotional problem. I wouldn't want to pay money to that psychiatrist though, because I'm the one with the problem who needs help. But it's possible. My point is this. These examples demonstrate for us very clearly the importance of grammar. Right? The wrong structure leads to the wrong meaning. Is that what you want? Then go ahead. Use grammar any way you want. Or don't use grammar. Or don't study grammar. Just speak noise, like a chimpanzee. But people will not understand you. They might even think you're not very smart or educated. You don't want that. Especially if you're trying to use your language for a job, to get a job, or to get into college or something. But the most important thing isn't what people think. It's what they understand from what you communicate. And if you're communicating the wrong idea because you're not using grammar precisely or accurately, you're going to miscommunicate. And sometimes miscommunication is silly and funny. And sometimes it's worse. You might offend someone. You might make them feel bad or angry. It's possible, right? So grammar is important. This is evidence that grammar is important. Now, I'm not saying it's more important than speaking or listening or reading or writing. You need all of them to work together, right? Now, you might say, well, teacher, if someone doesn't understand, I can just, they can ask me and I can make it clear. Yeah, if you're with them. But what if you write an email and you send the email and the meaning is strange and weird, well, they're not the person who's reading the email. You're not there with them to clarify. So when you're writing, especially, your writing has a duty to be very clear the first time, because the reader can't clarify with you the way we can if we talk to each other in the same room, right? So, like all grammar structure, the structure communicates the meaning with the vocabulary, but this all works together to express meaning. And that's the purpose of language. We speak a language to communicate ideas and meanings to our listeners, to our friends, to our family, to our co-workers, to our teachers, to our students. That's why we use language, to communicate to each other. And our goal should be to communicate accurately and the meaning that we have in our mind. This isn't what I thought when I made this sentence. I wasn't trying to tell someone, hey, I watched the soccer game the other day and Messi soaked an ankle he injured in an ice bucket. He didn't injure it in an ice bucket. He injured it in a game. And later he soaked his ankle in an ice bucket to make it feel better. This is the wrong message, right? So misplaced modifiers create miscommunication. That's not what we want. We want clear communication, right? So, guys, grammar is important. Modifiers are important. The next question we have to ask is, okay, Paul, how do I know where to put the modifier? That's a legitimate question, and there isn't a simple answer. But if you have doubts when you're writing a sentence or speaking, what we can see here from these examples is that if we have two verbs, the modifier should be close to the verb it modifies. So do that. If you're not sure where it goes, put it close to the right verb. What did he do in an ice bucket? Did he injure it in an ice bucket? No, he soaked it in an ice bucket. So move that closer to the verb soak, because in an ice bucket is modifying the action soaked, not injured, right? Along with his mother, he didn't buy control of the company with his mother. He didn't buy control of his mother. He and his mother bought control. So this belongs closer to the subject. So the basic rule you should remember from this is put your modifier close to the thing it modifies, right? That's better than putting it at the end of the sentence automatically. Not all modifiers go at the end of the sentence. And if you've been taught that, you've been lied to. That's not true. Not all modifiers go at the end of the sentence. Put them close to the thing they modify or the verb they modify. And if you have a sentence with two verbs, now you know why this is important. The modifier or the adverb needs to be close to the right verb. In an ice bucket is describing where he soaked his ankle, not where he injured it. So it's in the wrong spot. So put it close to the right verb or put it close to the right noun that it modifies. And as you can see, sentences often have a lot of nouns. Look at this one. The patient and the psychiatrist. We have two people here. The patient was sent to a psychiatrist with a severe emotional problem. Who do you think has the severe emotional problem? Well, the way it's structured now, it's close to the word psychiatrist. But I think it's the patient who has the severe emotional problem. So that modifier should be up here with patient. The patient with a severe emotional problem. I hope that helps you understand this. I know it's tricky. This is advanced sentence structure issues, right? But even if you're a beginner, eventually you're going to make sentences like this. So it's good to understand this and think about it when you get to the point where you can make a complex sentence with two verbs or two or three or four nouns. And for those of you who are already advanced and can make sentences like this, be careful. Don't commit this communication crime, right? Think about it. Think about where your modifiers go, especially if they're adverbial and you have more than one verb. or if they're prepositional phrases that describe the wrong person. Structure is important. Okay? And anyone that tells you it's not is just not being honest. Good morning. Welcome. Glad you could make it today. My username on TikTok, gosh, I don't know. The Grammar Detective, I think. I don't do a lot of work on TikTok. I don't find it all that useful for me as a live streamer. Yeah, exactly. Messi injured an ankle, so he soaked it in an ice bucket, right? He injured the ankle in a game, not in an ice bucket. He soaked it in an ice bucket. There's a lot of different ways you can structure it, but the general rule, it's not really a rule, but the general concept is get the modifier close to the thing it modifies. Okay? Look at what we do with simple adjectives. Red pen. Right beside the noun pen, the red pen. White. The white bunny. The white bunny. The modifier white is right beside the noun bunny. Right beside it. Right? Simple adverbs like quickly. Paul threw the baseball. Paul threw. That's the action. He threw it. How? He threw it quickly. Threw quickly. Right beside it. So it's clear what verb the adverb modifies. It's close. And you should keep that thought in mind when you're using these more complex modifiers, these prepositional phrases or adverbial clauses like this one with the chimpanzee, which I think is the most common style. Putting the chimpanzee modifier at the beginning, right? What was it originally? It said something like, as a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, I realized that Mongo had a special diet, right? Which I think is just crazy. This is the most common type of misplaced modifier. And I'm probably sure most of you have done this at one time. Right? As a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle, I realized that Mongo had a special diet. Right? And the problem here is that this modifier, and this is what we might call an adverbial clause because it is a clause that has a subject and a verb, but it's adverbial because it's modifying I. But I am not a chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle. That's in the wrong position. Mongo is the chimpanzee who grew up wild in the jungle. So that modifier should be close to Mongo, not Paul, right? Well, guys, I think what we can say is, in terms of misplaced modifiers, I think it's case closed. So remember, guys, when you're using modifiers, move them close to the thing or the action that they modify. Modifiers, thing that they modify. Get them close. The farther away they are from each other, the more you risk committing a communication crime. We don't want that. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Grammar Gumshoes, please stay tuned in the coming weeks because I have special announcements coming. I have some fantastic guests lined up and I want you to be there to see the guests. So stay tuned. The best way to follow me is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Scan this QR code, okay? And you will get all the updates about guest shows and different times. I may have to change some times so my guests can come because my guests are all over the world in different time zones. And this time is not convenient for all my guests. So I will have a couple of guest shows at different times. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best place to watch this show. And you will get notified of all the upcoming live stream events. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, Grammar Gumshoes, I'm going to say good night. But I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me. Hopefully you understand modifiers a little bit more, and also some of the strange and funny ways that modifiers in the wrong position can create these weird sentences, right? And if you want homework, try to rearrange these sentences so that they make sense, okay? You can take a picture of those, send me the revised sentence, right? Unscramble it, put it in the right order, and see if you can make these make sense, right? There's some really funny sentences here because of misplaced modifiers. And again, we want to avoid this so that we're not saying crazy things, unless that's our intention, right? For fun, we can say crazy things, but if you're trying to communicate something serious like, I don't know, a crime, right? This is from a newspaper. And the newspaper is trying to tell the public about a bank robber, but it's telling the public that the bank robber had really heavy hair, 90-kilogram hair. That's crazy. And that won't help the police catch the bad guy. So misplaced modifiers can cause a lot of problems. Thank you very much, guys. I see some nice messages here. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Sami. And for those of you who are new to the show, thank you for joining us tonight. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see all the past episodes. You may have questions about different grammar topics. There's probably a video there from a past episode that we've talked about your question. So on Hard-Boiled English Live, my goal, my dream is to help you solve your grammar mysteries so that you better understand English grammar and you can use it better. So check out the YouTube channel. Again, once more, subscribe, scan the QR code, or just go to The Grammar Detective 2, The Grammar Detective 2. I have 2 YouTube channels. One's the old one. I've abandoned it and moved on, created a new one. Okay, so check that out. Thank you, everyone. And I will say good night. So guys, until I see you again, as always, keep studying, keep asking questions. Contact me down in the description. Excuse me. You can find all my contact information. Join my WhatsApp community. Join my private members club. You can even get a free admission. Then you can ask questions there. You can ask questions that I can answer on the live show in the future. Stay in touch. Keep learning English. All right? Please keep studying and keep thinking of questions. And when you have an English grammar mystery, send it to me so we can talk about it on the show, on the next show. Until I see you on the next show, stay healthy, keep learning, and stay cool. Watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard-Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.